Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take the sources you're curious about, and instead of just giving you, a data dump, we try to boil it down. We pull out the key knowledge, the really surprising bits you need to, well, feel properly informed. So today we're getting into something quite fascinating.
Yeah.
Miniature gardening, specifically growing peanuts in miniature. Our source for this is a really interesting entry from Notes on Gardening, part 6340, by someone called Ang. Now, when you picture growing peanuts, you probably think, I don't know, big fields, lots of sun, right? Like Georgia or someplace.
Yeah, large scale.
Exactly. But Ang's notes, they tell a completely different story, a much smaller one. This isn't big agriculture. It's more about, well, curiosity. Someone asking, hey, can I take a regular peanut from the store? The kind you eat, stick it in a little seedling tray and actually get something.
And that's what's so great about it straight away. That simplicity. It just lowers the barrier, doesn't it? Makes gardening feel much less intimidating. It shows how these everyday things, like a peanut, can actually be a starting point for, well, real scientific observation. Anyone can try it.
Right. And here's the kicker, the really interesting part. Despite that tiny space, that seedling tray, Ang notes that these plants grew actual peanuts.
Yeah, actual peanuts.
It's kind of incredible. It really speaks to the plant's resilience, its drive to reproduce, even when things are super constrained.
It really does. Ang actually documented them maturing and forming pods right there in those little trays just a few months in.
Wow.
That observation, it sort of fundamentally challenges what we think about farming. This idea that you need huge amounts of space for yield. The fact they completed their life cycle like that, in that tiny setup, it says so much about the peanut itself, how adaptable it is. For anyone thinking about home gardening or maybe urban farming, this kind of changes the game.
It does.
Maybe optimal conditions are more flexible than we thought. For some plants anyway, it's like this biological efficiency kicking in.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What else are we missing with our standard gardening rules? And Ang's approach, it wasn't like intensive care either. It was more hands-off, observational.
Yeah, like a mini ecological study.
Exactly. They weren't constantly fiddling with the plants. They just sort of let them be, noted how they reacted in different spots.
Different microclimates, Ang called them.
Right. It felt less like just planting and more like a real inquiry. Like, how tough is this plant?
And that less interventionist style is really key, I think. By moving them around, providing just minimal, consistent care, Ang was basically running little experiments, testing stress response, adaptability. It's not just about watching them grow, it's understanding that interaction, plant and environment.
Yeah.
How resilient they are. It gives the plant agency, almost.
Yeah, I like that. And through all this watching, this careful sort of hands-off watching, Ang uncovered some really vital stuff, things any miniature gardener, beginner or not, would want to know.
Well, yeah.
Because even super adaptable plants like peanuts, they have weaknesses. Ang specifically mentions running into pests.
Right. And this is where the detailed notes become super practical. Actionable stuff. We focus a lot on what plants need, but what threatens them is just as crucial. Anne flags mealybugs and grasshoppers, specifically grasshopper nymphs.
Ah, the young ones.
Exactly. Growing in the peanut foliage, that's a key detail. It means they weren't just passing through. They were setting up shop.
Okay, establishing themselves.
Which tells you the environment, even that tiny tray, was working for them too. In miniature setups, catching nymphs early is vital. Their numbers can explode.
Right. A small space means a small problem can become a big one fast.
It's a good reminder. Even a tiny garden is still an ecosystem.
So it's this constant vigilance, isn't it? Not just getting it to grow, but protecting it.
Yeah.
And beyond pests, Ang's notes point to something else, something absolutely critical: sunlight.
Oh, yeah.
The notes are really clear. Peanuts need full direct sun, no compromises. Without it, you get that leggy growth.
Ah, legginess. Every gardener knows that look. But for peanuts, it's more than just looking spindly or having weak stems. What Ang's observations really highlight, maybe implicitly, is how light affects the peanut's very unique way of reproducing. See, they flower above ground, fine, but then they send this special stalk, it's called a peg.
A peg, right.
Down into the soil. That's where the actual peanut pod develops, underground.
Okay, I see where you're going.
So when a plant gets leggy, it's stretching, right? Putting all its energy into reaching for light way up high. That energy isn't going into strong stems, or crucially, into making those pegs and pushing them down into the soil effectively.
Ah, so the legginess directly messes with the yield.
Exactly. It directly compromises the whole point, getting those peanuts underground. It's not just aesthetic. It hits the core biology, a perfect example of environment impacting function.
That's a really great connection, tying the visual cue, the leggy look, straight to the biological outcome for peanuts, their whole underground strategy. So, okay, on one hand, you've got this incredibly adaptable plant, grows peanuts in a tray, seems easy, but then bam, it needs full sun, no ifs, ands, or buts, and you've got to watch out for these specific pests.
Mealybugs, grasshopper nymphs.
Yeah, it really gives you a balanced picture, doesn't it? It's easy to start, maybe, but it still demands specific things. It's still real plant care, even tiny plant care.
Absolutely. And that duality, the surprising toughness, combined with these very clear, non-negotiable needs, that's what makes peanuts such a fantastic learning tool. For anyone curious about plants, gardening, Eng's conclusion is spot on, that peanuts are definitely one of those easily accessible plant species to explore.
Especially starting out.
Exactly.
Right.
Low barrier to entry, like we said. But it offers this rich hands-on lesson. You learn about light needs, resource allocation, pest management, all from one little seed.
It's pretty amazing that the depth you can get from something so simple. It really is. This whole deep dive into Eng's notes, it's kind of peeled back the layers on small-scale growing, hasn't it? Takes the humble peanut and shows you this whole world. From just being curious to watching it sprout, seeing that resilience in a tiny space, then the pests show up.
And that absolute need for sunlight. It covers so many basics of plant science, practical gardening, all from one experiment. It's more than growing peanuts. It's like growing understanding.
And if you zoom out, think bigger picture. Eng's experiment really shows that gardening, even with the challenges, the pests, the light, it can be incredibly rewarding and accessible.
Yeah.
It sort of encourages us to look again at everyday things, not just as food, but as subjects for our own curiosity, our own little experiments.
Yeah.
It's a great reminder that, your windowsill, your balcony, it can be a lab for discovery, finding the extraordinary in the ordinary.
Precisely. So what's the takeaway for you listening? Maybe you're a gardening pro, maybe you're thinking about your first houseplant. Eng's peanuts show there's a surprisingly deep learning curve there. You're not just watching growth. You're seeing plant energy strategy under pressure, that weird geocarpy thing where it fruits underground.
Geocarpy? Yeah. And dealing with pests in a small space, all from a grocery store seed. We've seen they can thrive with minimal fuss, even produce peanuts in tiny gardens. And it's but they need that full sun. Otherwise, legginess, and that hinders the underground peanuts.
Definitely.
And yeah, keep sharp eyes peeled for mealybugs and those grasshopper nymphs. Tiny invaders, big problem potential.
So building on Eng's curiosity, here's something for you to think about. If a simple peanut holds all these lessons in miniature, what else? What other common seeds, things you see every day, might have surprising secrets waiting? What item from the grocery store could be your next tiny garden experiment, your own source of discovery?
Yeah, what could it be? We really encourage you to explore that, just like Eng did. Well, that's it for this deep dive. We hope you feel a bit more informed, maybe learn something new about the surprisingly complex life of a peanut, and perhaps, just perhaps, you're feeling a little inspired to start your own miniature gardening adventure. Find your sunny spot and see what happens.